The Chicago Catholic League has long been known for producing elite talent, and next year is shaping up to be no different. In this episode, we're diving into one of the most exciting storylines heading into the upcoming season, and that's the next wave of quarterbacks set to take the league by storm. We've got some dynamic dual threat playmakers. We've got pocket passers with next level arm talent. And the CCL is once again proven to be a breeding ground for top tier quarterback talent. Who are the names to watch? Which teams are set to take a leap under center? And could we be looking at the next great signal caller or callers to emerge from this great conference? We'll break it all down, highlight key players, and give our thoughts on who's primed for a breakout year. Let's get into it. Hello, everyone, and welcome. We are the Varsity Voices, where we bring you information and insights on topics related to high school sports, and we are your go-to source for everything Chicago Catholic League football. Subscribe, follow, and like us on wherever you listen from. And I'm Joe Frevoletti, one of your hosts. Here with me is your other host, Dan Frevoletti. And today we're excited to welcome back Jenny Czerwonka, publisher for Deep Dish Football. Jenny is passionate about Illinois high school football and is committed to helping young, talented athletes showcase their skills and connect with college programs. Jenny, we'd like to welcome you back to the Varsity Voices.
Thanks for having me
good.
back.
Yeah, and we're going to talk or cover quarterbacks this week in kind of our next installment of our Futures episode, where we talk about some of the upcoming players within the Chicago Catholic League. We're kind of looking at it from a standpoint of position by position. We covered wide receivers a couple weeks ago, and we're going to cover quarterbacks tonight. And there's some good ones. There's some good ones returning, and there's some good ones up and coming, right?
Yeah, the position of quarterback is in great shape in the Catholic League, you guys, and it is but what's really interesting is that only one returning all conference player and we're going to talk about a lot of great players, but you can see just how strong the senior class was this year. At the quarterback position, because it was interesting in just doing some of the research that only one all conference player, and that Stephen Armbruster from St. Rita comes back as a returning all conference player. So interesting to see. There's going to be while the quarterback position is in great shape, it's going to be a lot of new faces, and we'll see what kind of adjustment that is to varsity football.
Yeah, and we've got one quarterback returning, I think it's only one, who was a state champion last year, right, in Izzy Abrams from Montini. The rest of the state champions, let's see, Loyola, DePaul Prep, Mount Carmel. Anybody else? Am I missing anybody?
Nazareth.
They all...
As far as all conference, there was two more. There was Jamin Williams from Fenwick and Trey Taylor.
Right.
Okay, good.
But I would say the same thing. It's kind of a younger class.
Yes, returning seniors. Yeah, I should say younger. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so there's some big names and big talents that need to be, or that some of these programs need to replace for next year. But based on some of the things, Jenny, that we've talked about and some of the names that we've passed around a little bit, some of these are really good programs, like I'll just throw Mount Carmel out there. I don't think they're worried too much. I think they're ready to reload. I mean, you lose somebody like Jack Elliott and you think that's going to be a problem. And you think about Loyola, they're losing Fitzgerald, that's going to be a problem. But then when you look at some of the guys they've got waiting in the wings and coming up, you can't feel too sorry for them, right, at this point, because they are really reloading at the quarterback position.
Yeah, so Carmel has the kid who's going to be a senior is a name that's going to sound familiar. It's Emmett Dowling. So Emmett's brother, you'll remember, is Blaney Dowling, who's at Eastern now, but led the Caravan to an undefeated season in 2022.
Right. Yeah. So this is his younger brother, right? Yeah. And he will be a senior. Is that correct? Yeah.
And he's Emmett's doing great. He, he's training, he's, working out with his coach and stuff. Emmett's biggest draw is obviously he didn't get huge playing time last year.
Right.
He played the whole game for one game, and he got in when they were up by a lot. But that's the biggest issue he's facing, is he just didn't have a lot of playing time. But just to talk about a couple of the other quarterbacks behind Parker starts, his little brother is Ryder, who is class of 27. And then under him is who had his freshman year this year and did phenomenal, threw for over 2,000 yards and he had 30 touchdowns, is Ryan DeAndre. And then actually incoming is who I call Elliott 2.0 and Jack's little brother. So we got a lot of legacies coming through.
Yeah, I like Elliott 2.0. That's right. Yeah. Yeah, and I've seen a little bit of footage on actually all of them, or a little bit of video on all of them, and they all look really talented. Now, we saw Dowling last year when he had to kind of step in when Jack Elliott was out, and he did a good job. Some of the others that you mentioned, Ryder Starts, Ryan DeAndrea, and the incoming freshman, Thomas Elliott. I've looked at some of the video on all of them, and they've all got a lot of talent. So I would think there's going to be a little bit of competition there at Mount Carmel for who's gonna kind of slide into that spot and fill in for or take over for Jack Elliott.
Yeah, you have to think that Dowling has the inside track, right? He'll be a senior. He's been in the program. He's done everything they've asked, but his biggest challenge might be fending off this bevy of really, really strong contenders. Ryder Starts really looks the part, great escapability, some good running ability, super quick release. He does not throw like a freshman, or a sophomore. And he's got a lot of moxie. And, Ryan DeAndre, he has a little more, you can see some getting used to that high school football can be a challenge for some young guys, but he throws really well on the run. He does run zone read real well. So he's more of a long strider. So he doesn't look as fast, but he's got good speed and he runs hard. So I have not seen film on Thomas Elliott 2.0, but I'm sure with the bloodlines, he's going to be someone that gets a look from these coaches.
Yeah, well, Jack is doing his little brother a big favor by continuing to promote him on X, which you would expect a big brother to do, and I appreciate it a lot. And so he's been putting some stuff out there on him, and he's saying, "Just wait till you see my little brother." And sure enough, he's got a lot of talent.
And he's not that little; he's about to pass up Jack in height any day.
Right?
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So that'll be good. I think from a standpoint of Mount Carmel, I think they're doing okay as far as filling in or somebody stepping in for Jack Elliott next year. So, but let's stay with the Blue Division and let's go to Brother Rice. And they've actually got a returning really talented quarterback in CJ Gray. So I would imagine, obviously he's going to be the person there going into next year. But, Jenny, you've got some other people that you've looked at or you've noticed that are really kind of waiting in the wings there after CJ as well.
Yeah, and obviously CJ's a dual threat quarterback. He had a good year last year. He's really good. The sophomore starting quarterback was Rocco Galasso. He saw some time on varsity. He has a really strong arm. He was able to stay calm under pressure. His backup was Rashawn Coleman.
Okay.
Give too much on him. The freshman that started was Colin Cooper, but the backup freshman, Malachi, I think is how you pronounce it, Hennigan. He will probably compete for the starting job this fall because he's really, really good. He plays basketball too, and his footwork is just coming along, and he's really looking good.
Yeah, well, that's good for Brother Rice, to have a little competition there, and plus they've got a talented returner as well in CJ Gray.
Right. Yeah, Joe, watching CJ Gray, we talked about him a lot last year. They were in a lot of big games, and he was one of the guys that I was surprised to hear that he was a junior like 2 or 3 weeks into the season. It's he plays like a senior, which is a really good sign. So So I feel like he's pretty secure, but watching a little bit of Rocco Galasso, who's got just the greatest name ever. Well,
Good name, yes.
and he plays with a lot of swagger. When you watch him, he is confident in his ability, and he's got some swag out there. So he knows his way around the football field. A lot of highlights throwing the fade, which is not easy to do. So you can, Jenny, your thoughts about his arm talent? It's spot on.
And he plays baseball too.
Yeah. You see a lot of dual sport athletes in a lot of these guys, and which is great to see. And I think Malachi Hennigan too, he plays he looks like he may have had a growth spurt, looking on social media, like from when he played the film to watching some quarterback training video that's out there. He looks like he's a little bit taller too. So that's interesting to see how he'll compete with Colin Cooper and Rashawn Coleman and what the coaches think about him as an up and coming sophomore.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, especially since there's a fair amount of names here, right? As far as some of these guys, and whether they're competing for the starting job or whether they're competing to be the backup to CJ Gray. But it's always interesting to see how these guys, there's so much development really kind of physically that goes on in high school. So some of the guys who are freshmen and maybe are 5'8", 5'9", or something, 160 pounds. All of a sudden they show up for their sophomore year and they're all of a sudden they're 6'1", 175 pounds. So, a lot changes from year to year with some of these players.
It doesn't surprise me too, like we have in so many names to talk about, Brother Rice. Remember we talked last week and I said they definitely were one of the top talent, if not the top talent in the Catholic League for the freshmen.
On the freshman level, yeah. Well, it shows. It certainly shows at the quarterback position. So,
yeah. All right, well, let's move to another Blue Division team, and that's Loyola. And another team that loses a very good quarterback in Fitzgerald, who's moving on. Now, Fitzgerald was hurt a couple of games last year, and they had, I think it was a sophomore who stepped in. Is that right, Dan?
Dom Maloney. Yeah.
Dom Maloney, right.
Yeah, he played well. I mean, I know that there's other names on the list. There's a name on the list that's getting a lot of notoriety, but it should be a good battle to watch going into this season. He'll just be a junior, but he's got experience. I wouldn't necessarily write him off, but I think we're also going to talk about, Jenny. Is it Matthew Lee for Loyola? He's a big time freshman with a big arm already. There's no freshman throwing motion here. I don't know how big he will get, but his vision's already outstanding, and he's got a great feel for the game. Really good release. One of several freshmen we're going to discuss that are really up and coming and getting high profiles very quickly.
He's already 6'4", 190 pounds, but he is such so accurate. His passing is.
You can see it on film.
If they are competing, or if they, not really going to go back and forth with quarterbacks, but I wouldn't be surprised to see either one of them kill it.
Yeah. And I know in the underclassmen, some of the underclassmen showcases that have been going on here, that Matthew Lee has continued to impress. So I would imagine he'll just continue to develop between now and the start of the next season. So, but you can't count out a guy who stepped in and did a really good job in Dom Maloney last year. Yeah. All right. So let's see. We've covered everybody in the Blue Division except St. Ignatius, right? Yeah. And normally when you talk about St. Ignatius, even though they've had some really good talent at the quarterback position, you don't think of it as a program that is, a quarterback development program, right? I mean, they like to run the option, and they pick their quarterbacks accordingly to run that. And they've got a really good player that they've got to replace. Was that Wanzang last year? Yeah, who was their quarterback. So, but the name that comes up here, Jenny and Dan, is Reed Heights, right?
Jenny, is that who you have, Reed Heights, as the freshman?
I wasn't really sure who Wangzung's backup was last year, but yeah, Heights is who I had too. He's a freshman.
Yeah, and I did find a little video, and so tough to bring down. He's a tough guy, so he plays linebacker or played linebacker on defense. Hard to tell if true speed on some of this film, but he looks like he's very comfortable with the offense, which is a big deal and probably the most important thing. And he's effective running it.
He did get recognized at like his last showcase for being like one of the top performers.
That's good. You've got to be a good athlete, to play that position. And they do, if they're in the position to throw, they've got to be able to do that. And he certainly looks the part for Ignatius.
Yeah, he does. And we'll see if there's anybody else waiting in the wings once they get started there. But, from a standpoint of, I think it's like one of the more important aspects for the offense that Ignatius runs, to have somebody like, not only like Wanzung, but, somebody who you mentioned, Dan, like Heights, who's got those same kind of that same kind of skill set to be able to run that offense. It's not an easy offense to run. And it really takes a particular kind of athlete, somebody's who's got a particular kind of skill set. So we'll see how that goes for Reed Heights.
Yeah, and a certain level of toughness. You're going to get hit
a lot,
and you see that on video. He's throwing it as he's getting hit a lot and doing it very well. So it's just part of the gig with St. Ignatius. So he looks ready to go.
Yeah. All right, so let's move to the Green Division, and we'll start with IC. And they've got a quarterback who's moving on. That was Will Brick, or Breik, I don't know how you say that, but who had a good season this year. So somebody that I think is relatively difficult to replace, but they seem to have somebody waiting in the wings that they've been kind of grooming here, playing a little bit last year on JV. Playing backup on varsity, and that's Nate Lang for IC. And I think he will be a junior next year, but he started to do some of the underclassmen camps. Some of the stats and some of the video I was able to watch on him. He's got a really good arm. He moves well. I think for him, it's just a matter of getting a little more varsity type competition and play to see how he does in that environment.
Yeah, he's a heady player. You can tell he knows the game. He knows where to throw the ball, sees the field really well, does everything right. So you can tell he's really worked at the craft of playing quarterback. So quick release. So and he's just got a great command of the offense. So it doesn't seem to, he never looks overwhelmed as far as what I've seen, and we'll see if that continues on varsity.
Yeah. Jenny, have you heard anything about Nate Lang at all? Over the course of some of your discussions, or
no, I know he's starting to go to a lot of camps as far as recruiting. I think he's just working in the off season.
Right. Yeah. All right. Yeah, and I really haven't heard any other names at IC as far as quarterbacks are concerned that are up and coming. But I would think that we'll probably get a couple more names before next season rolls along. But I think from a standpoint of who they're looking at and who they're hoping kind of steps up and into that position and does it well, even though he's only going to be a junior, will be Nate Lang. So that's good. Let's move to Nazareth. Here's another state champ who's got to replace a very successful and prolific quarterback in Logan Malachuk. They've got some real weapons on the outside that we talked about on our last episode when we talked about wide receivers. And they need somebody to get them the ball. And Jenny, who do you think they're going to be relying on, or who do you think they're looking at to get some of these top end weapons like Trenton Walker and Jake Sestone, to the ball next year?
Well, the only name I had was Frankie Nichols. He's a sophomore right now, going to be a junior. But I know he saw some time on special teams last year as well.
Right.
But I don't know if I really don't know if that's the only one, but that's the only name I have this time.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat, Joe. I wonder if having a 4-year starter at quarterback is impacts, other quarterbacks that may want to go to Naz. They're huge shoes to fill in Logan Malachek. I mean, just a record-setting career from not only the state championships but the individual accomplishments. But you mentioned it. If they can get a quarterback that can catch the ball and quickly get rid of it to those receivers, he's going to be in really good shape because they're so loaded at wide receiver. But you get the ball to those two all-conference players, and you're going to be in great shape.
Yeah, I think I have 1 year of eligibility left at the high school level, where I think I can probably just throw the ball up and they'll go and get it. So I think I'd be okay. What do you think?
Yeah, as long as no one hits you. If you can wear the yellow jersey, like the yellow practice jersey while you're doing it, you'll be fine.
Through the game. Nobody hits that old quarterback. Yeah. All right. So let's move on to St. Francis. And interesting here because, everybody thought they've got a really good quarterback coming back for his senior year, and that's Brady Palmer. And, you would think, from a coaching standpoint, you think, oh, we're set at quarterback, we're set here, we're set there. But all of a sudden, he gets up and he transfers to Florida. So now all of a sudden you've got a void to fill. And I'm sure the cupboard isn't bare here, but a couple of names, Jenny. One we've heard is Jalen Carter. Is that one of the names?
Yes.
Yeah, and
he played a little on DB last year too.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw him at DB and running back, Joe. And I know he came up through the youth levels and I think played as a freshman, maybe at a different school, quarterback. But a lot of highlights out there at running back and defensive back. Both were really solid. I wonder if Jalen will slide back into the quarterback role. Now that this transfer has happened and Jenny, I think we had one more name, right, for St. Francis?
Yeah, someone had mentioned Alex Taylor, who's a freshman. Couldn't really find any stats on him or any measurables, but he comes recommended highly.
Yeah. Joe, how would you like that? You're a freshman, you're thinking, oh, yeah, I've got another year to develop, and all of a sudden the senior to be star quarterback transfers, and people are looking at you and talking about you on a podcast. It's like, whoa, all right, I better get to work. And I'm sure he is. I'm trying to put myself in that position and be like, oh boy.
Yeah. Here we go. Do you think he's trying to avoid Coach McMillan in the hallways at St. Francis? Right? Like, hey, I wasn't expecting this. So you two, Jalen and Alex, it's time to get busy here.
Yeah.
Get to work.
Yep. Yeah. Meet me in my office and we're going to watch film.
Right. All right. So let's go to the last team in the Green Division, and that is St. Rita, and they've got a returning all-conference quarterback, right? And Armbruster had a really good year, another dual-threat quarterback. I would think that, with another year under his belt and another offseason to develop even more, whether it's, from a physical standpoint, get a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, as well as knowing the offense better, I would think he's in a really good spot, or St. Rita is in a really good spot having Armbruster coming back.
Yeah, he's talented player. We talked about him a lot. Led that team in a lot of weeks, to victory, and was crucial in a lot of those wins. So yeah, they're in great shape, and I'm sure Jenny, he's probably got some recruiting interest out there.
Yeah, he does. I know he picked up his first offer. He had really good seasons. He broke the passing touchdown record and the passing yardage record for St. Rita. When you have a school that's got a history like that, that's really good. A fun fact that in grammar school, Stephen Armbruster was Jack Elliott's backup.
Wow.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Geez, that's a pretty good youth team there. That's a pretty good team.
It was.
Not bad.
But I
Not
think
bad
Stephen, this is his third year, really, because remember that sophomore year, he got pulled up because the quarterback got injured. So he played most of the sophomore year, his junior season. And so I think he's,
And they've got, you mentioned another name. Is this a younger player coming up, John Fennell? Fennell?
He's a sophomore, so rising junior.
Okay, good. So, they've got somebody, maybe not going to push Armbruster for the starting position, but they've got somebody in a development role here that can make a contribution here at some point.
Right, and
Especially,
ideally that's what you want, right? To be able to be up games and take your starter out and start room in the next one.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. Okay. All right, good. So that's the green division. Let's move to the orange, and let's start with Marist. And I looked at the names here, Jenny, of some of the names that we were looking at as far as quarterbacks go, and I'm not sure, how Marist kind of replaces at the quarterback position. I just feel like, some of these names here, I'm not quite sure, who do you think they're going to be looking at here?
Well, first, when we talk about like the schools that I'm a little bit closer to, then you're going to get all the levels, right? Because I know a lot of the kids and the families, and I was at more games and talked to more coaches. But yeah. I think we're going to be pleasantly surprised by Luke DeTempo. I think he's going to be the starter. Last year, he probably could have been, if Ritter didn't come, he probably would have had the starting job last year.
Okay.
And he's got a great arm. He's strong. He's pretty accurate passing. I think he will have a good senior season. And then for the sophomores this past year, the quarterback was Tommy Hosty.
Any relation to Frankie Hosty at Fenwick?
Yes, I think they are. They're cousins, I believe.
Ah, interesting. Okay.
Don't quote me, but I'm almost positive they're cousins.
Yeah.
But Tommy is definitely an athlete. He could move to a lot of positions. He plays basketball. He plays baseball. He's just very athletic. So I think if that was an issue, which is a good problem to have, they can move him around.
Yeah.
And at the freshman level, so here's a little bit interesting too. So at the freshman level, they were going back and forth between Jake Fleming and Jack Bullington. Both of those guys. Jake Fleming is an outstanding athlete all around. And Jack is he looks like your prototype quarterback body. He's also a pitcher. They're both really good, and they both did well. Jake did play a little bit more because obviously it's hard to, work with two quarterbacks and go back and forth. But Jack comes from a very athletic family. His sister is a senior at Marist. She's been committed to Northwestern for volleyball for a couple of years. His dad was the number one for the baseball draft.
Go Cats.
So, very athletic family. He's very tall already. So I think Marist is in good hands for the future.
Yeah, it sure sounds like it. I didn't have a chance to look at any video or film that might be out there on any of these. Dan, did you have a chance to look at any of them?
Yeah, a little bit, and I just have to agree with what Jenny was saying. And Jenny, it was Jack that has the more typical quarterback frame.
Yeah, right now. Yeah. They're both freshmen. So Jack's dad, like I said, he was the number one pick of the Major League Baseball draft his year from Ball State. His mom played college.
Right.
Yeah, you could see some of the little differences when they play, but both really capable. That's Jenny. It's funny you say that because I was thinking as I'm watching, boy, it'd be really tough to manage both these quarterbacks, and I know that's partly what the freshman level is for, but they certainly didn't make it easy because they both can play, and I've heard the same thing about DeTempo, that he was ready to go, prior to Ritter transferring in. So it looks like Marist is in really good hands, Joe.
What else also, prior to this freshman class, that was when the coaching change happened. So, you don't really know how much of the recruiting was kept up, but the class of 29, they are very football heavy.
Very football heavy. Boy, that is just a loaded area. It's literally the SEC. It's the SEC of high school football. It's unreal.
Yes, and they're doing a really good job there at getting some of those players that they want at Marist. So, and obviously, it sounds like they're filled with talent at the younger levels. So we won't worry about Marist too much yet.
Right. Yeah. And going to be well coached. They do a great job.
Yes,
great coaching staff, Joe. We watched one of their practices. It looked like a college practice. It was really well run. So they're in really good hands over there.
Yeah. All right, so let's go to another team in the Orange Division. And that's Notre Dame. Um, I always feel like we don't have a ton of information on Notre Dame. Why is that, Dan?
I think we'll get more. I think now that that Coach DeFranza has taken over,
Yeah,
I
good.
just think it's just a matter of Coach Hennessy did a great job for a number of years, obviously, and had a ton of success, but was from a different era, and so they're just where there wasn't a lot of information shared, and a lot of this probably wasn't on social media. I'm guessing if I had to take a guess, but I think Coach DeFranza will, and they and we sent out a mailer, Joe, asking for information. He got back to us with some good info. He gave us Luke Dickey as a returner. He's a solid player. Anytime there's a new coach, it's going to be interesting to see what they do with that position. He's gonna have competition. Eric Cooper is going to provide that. He's a current sophomore, so he'll be a junior, and after a rough season like Notre Dame had, and a new coaching staff, you would expect that I'm going to guess that there is no position that's guaranteed, and there's going to be a lot of fresh eyes with fresh ideas from this new staff. So that'll be an interesting one to follow. And I know we're going to get more info out of Notre Dame this year.
Well, we've gotten some responses from the new coach DeFranza already. Right, which is a plus as far as we're concerned, right?
Absolutely,
yeah, absolutely. So, I hope he has a ton of success there, and he's got some pieces. Jenny, have you heard of anybody else other than Luke Dickey at Notre Dame that they might be looking at from a quarterback standpoint?
No, Luke was really the one I knew, and I knew he was recognized as one of the top quarterbacks in 26.
Yeah, that's good. And he's going to have some weapons. I think from a wide receiver standpoint, which we talked about a couple of weeks ago, who was it? Was it Nick Miro?
Yes.
Yes.
He's super good.
Yeah, very good. So, maybe there's some building blocks there for Coach DeFranza, and hopefully he can make the most of them. So, Luke Dickey, coming back, going to play quarterback, and hopefully that's a good basis for them for some success going forward next year.
Real quick, but you know what I want to say? What we touched on a little bit is the social media. That could be a whole episode in itself, but the involvement of social media, right? And just
right,
it could be a full-time thing for not only the students, the coaches, all of it. Someone who's just marketing it. There's so much information out there.
All right, so Jenny, I feel like you just signed up for another episode with us.
Well,
is that what I'm getting here? Let me get a date down. Okay.
Well, I tried to really focus when I became president of the youth program. The guy before me, everybody came to the program because they wanted to play for him. He was such a good coach. So I didn't have that. So I focused on building the brand. And really, that's what these kids are doing every day is building their brand, right?
Right.
Yep. It's funny, Joe, how one episode leads into another, which leads into another. We talked about NIL with our guest a few weeks ago, and he said that exact same thing, Jenny. It's about what brand do you want to have out there, as it relates to NIL, and we're seeing that more and more every day, and it's building, and the high schools, the athletic programs within the high schools all trying to have a brand and build a brand, and now the individuals within those specific programs. So you couldn't be more right about that discussion about having a brand and how important it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So next team within the Orange Division, let's go to Providence, and they've got a returning quarterback in Leo Slepsky, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who was pretty productive over the last couple of years. Being the starting quarterback for Providence, so I would think that he's got kind of the inside track here. But they've got some talent coming up, don't they, Jenny? And AJ Rayford, and who was the other? Don Vita.
Yeah. So I watched a lot of Don Vita, and I know he's a freshman, so I think we're jumping the gun here. but I would not be surprised if he works his way up. He threw for over 2,000 yards, rushed for 700, hit 30 touchdowns. He only had 2 turnovers. He's on my list for one of the top 28 athletes.
Really? Okay, good.
A fun fact, he's not lost a game of football since 2021.
Really?
And that's pretty good. They went down
Yeah.
to Florida a couple times for the championships. So yeah, I think they have a lot of talent at the quarterback position, which is a good problem to have. And you can't go wrong if you have someone who's about to be a sophomore. It's going to be good. AJ.
Yeah.
Right.
AJ Rayford, I mean, he came in late in the year, right, Joe? I mean, I thought he may have played late. I don't know if Slepsky got hurt or if they just made that change. So, the offense looked good with him. It'll be interesting to see, what happens. They've put a couple, and Jenny, correct me if I'm wrong, a couple really good classes of football players together that I think that first class, maybe the coach's first full year for first full season classes. Are they going to be juniors? I mean, they seem like that class is really good. I think Joey played them as freshmen a couple of years ago, and
I'm trying to forget that game.
I think I've blacked out the score, and but no, I think they were really talented, and we thought for sure we were playing mostly sophomores, and nope, every kid out there was a freshman, and so that was wishful thinking on our part. But yeah, they've got obviously with AJ Rayford, and then with Don Vita, he's a big kid. He's already 6'3". He's got a big arm. Another kid who doesn't throw like a freshman, quick release. So he really looks the part as well. So they seem to be in really good shape at the position.
And Don's a multi-sport athlete too. So so is AJ. AJ plays basketball.
Yeah, that always helps.
Yeah, it does. And they've got some good weapons too. We talk, I keep mentioning this, but they've got a couple of really good wide receivers coming back for next year. So, somebody be able to get them the ball, I think would be a good thing for Providence. I'm sure Coach Plants would love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go to the last team in the Orange Division. That's Joliet Catholic. And they've got another team with a returning quarterback who, didn't necessarily have to do a ton last year, but, I was, pleasantly surprised when I watched Lucas Similik and when he threw the ball last year. I thought he throws a really nice ball. He had a couple of, had a good receiver or two to get it to. Obviously, they like to run the ball a lot, but you never know from year to year with Joliet Catholic what they're going to have to do, how they're going to have to, transform maybe. And, I think from a standpoint of having a quarterback in place that can do a couple of things for you and maybe, be that quarterback that can be a little transformative and throw the ball a little bit more. I don't think you can, or you're going to go wrong with Lucas Similik.
Yeah, he's. I'd look for him to maybe take a little bit bigger role, Joe, with the graduation of their backs and some changes, and a lot of changes in personnel. We know that they can kind of, I don't know, rinse and repeat, or they've got a mold of gigantic linemen there that they just fill year in and year out, and big guys that can carry the football. But a returning quarterback with the experience, who's had a lot of success, I look for him to maybe have a little bit bigger role, especially in the early part of the season as they get their guys comfortable. I don't know, Jenny, did you tell us he's also multi-sport?
Yeah, he's actually committed. Right now, he's committed to Eastern to play baseball in college.
All right, I thought he was a big time baseball player. Yeah, so that's good, and those guys are good.
Yeah, that could change still though.
Yeah. A commitment's like a dinner reservation these days, right?
I found this girl on she's a recruiting specialist. I have her book. It's just about how to try to get recruited, and she calls it comparing to an engagement. When you're committed, you're engaged.
There you go.
Right. Yeah. And that gets more and more so the case these days, right? It's very tenuous until you actually get that ring on your finger and you say, I do. Yeah. Right. All right. So that's the Orange Division. Let's move to the Purple. And we'll start with Bennett. And Dan, I'm going to rely on you a little bit here for, The Bennett quarterbacks, we know they graduated a good quarterback last year in Ryan Kabaki. He had a great season. Had some good weapons to throw to, and they've got to kind of reload here at the quarterback position. But they've got some kids who've played some different positions on varsity that are very talented, really good athletes who may be able to step in here. Plus, they've got some younger kids kind of coming up who maybe played freshman or sophomore last year that they might be looking at, might be relying on.
Yeah, I think it starts with Ben Clevenger, who they couldn't keep off the field last year, so he started as a safety. And also was the backup quarterback if Ryan Kabaki were to go down. So, but he's such a good athlete that they had to get him. He was one of their best 11, on defense. So they played him. Now he got hurt, and but he is a tough guy with a really good arm. So, his only issue will be that he might want to force his way onto the field in other positions, and he's
right.
he's that kind of an athlete. He likes to hit people, and he's aggressive, but a kind of a big arm guy, good athlete guy. And so it'll be interesting to see. I think he's got the inside track. Joe, they had a freshman who was really good, Cristiano Diomede, very athletic. He's got really good running skills. So as a sophomore, it'll be interesting to see if he plays well enough to maybe allow Clevenger to play at other spots if they feel like that's what gets them their best team. But total speculation on that part. I know both guys can play. I know Clevenger can do a lot of different things. Literally, tough and big enough to play linebacker. But Diomede really fits the current CCL mold of athletic QBs. So that'll be an interesting one to watch.
Yeah, and they've they've got some returning weapons for whoever ends up playing quarterback, and primarily Luke Doyle at the wide receiver position. So, somebody who's able to get him the ball. Dan, should we say something about Luke Doyle not making the top 25?
Top 50? Was it 50? I think it was 50, which is even more.
He should be in at least the top 25. Should we say something about that or not?
My only thought was that if there's a CCL wide receiver that was all conference, that he probably is in the top 50. And he had to play against Mount Carmel and Nazareth and DePaul Prep, and so had 1,200 yards or whatever it was receiving. So I think he's probably earned a top 50 status. So we'll see if that gets updated.
Yeah,
and we're not the only ones talking about it from Bennett, Joe.
So Jenny, our true colors are showing here, aren't they?
It's okay. I like it.
Yeah. All right. So that's Bennett. Another team here in the Purple Division who, St. Viator, right? So they graduated a really good quarterback in Komet. The information that I could find on quarterbacks that maybe are up and coming here that new coach Robbie Gold might be looking at. One is Joey Lampignano. Did you see that too as well, Jenny?
Yeah, that's why I had too.
Yeah, and I looked at some film of him, some video, and he looks like he's he's got good size. He moves well, and he's got a really good arm. He was able to make some throws. I saw him make some throws at a camp, where he put it, he put it right where it needed to be. And it was just about 35, 40 yards downfield. So, from what I can see, he's got a lot of talent. Whether or not this is who, Coach Gould is looking at, and we've reached out to Coach Gould to get some information on some of these, or some of the players that he's looking for or looking to step up next year in his first year. But I would think that Joey is one of the players here, especially at the quarterback position, which is really important, that he might be relying on.
Is he a senior to be? Is he a current junior?
Yeah.
I believe so.
He is?
Yes.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
I think he's in the same position kind of as a couple of the other ones that, The only drawback is there was such a stud in front of him that he didn't get as much playing time.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's it.
So,
Big shoes to fill. And, it's funny when we talk about Cooper Kmet, watching him as a freshman, he's kind of the one I base a lot of these when I watch the current freshmen, in some of the video. He was so good as a freshman. I was blown away, in the game against Bennett. And he was just such a difference maker. So I'm always interested to see how the ones I see on video now that are freshmen, how they compare to Cooper Kmet. And, he was so athletic that he was equally as dangerous with his legs as he was with his arms. But they've got big shoes to fill. They've got a lot of work to do. So we'll see how Joey fares in this fall.
yeah. Okay, so another team in the purple division that has big shoes to fill is DePaul Prep. Obviously, Juju Rodriguez, who was outstanding this past year, state champs, is moving on, and they've got to fill that position, because they've got some talent coming back as well at the wide receiver position that we talked about before. A couple of names here, Jenny. We've got. I believe it was the sophomore this year, Jackson Grabinski, another name, Jake Yost. And I think Coach Passarella actually told us about a rising senior. His name is Blake Yukon. So
Yeah, we talked a little bit about him last week. Blake's actually one of the first kids I interviewed for Deep Pitch.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Blake Yukon is kind of the senior to be. Great kid, coach said team leader, working really hard this season, but it's going to be a competition. Those two young guys, Jackson Grabinski and Jake Yost. Jake Yost is a freshman, Grabinski the sophomore. Grabinski's a gamer. He plays a lot like Juju when I watch video on him. Dual threat, big arm, really good athletic ability. Definitely a big time prospect. Probably could be an athlete as well. So he's we'll have to see if he wins it out or if they want to roll the dice with the freshman Jake Yost. It'll be a sophomore, and he's more of a pocket passer. He's got a great feel for the position, and can make any throw, and he's very accurate. So he's definitely one of these advanced freshman quarterback that we're talking about, and so that'll be an interesting battle at DePaul Prep.
Yeah, it will be. When you look at Jackson Grabinski, you see, the size, the measurables, those kinds of things, in what you want in a quarterback. He's got a big arm. He's a really good athlete as well.
Yeah, tough guy too.
Tough guy as well. But, also some of the stuff with Jake Yost, he is somebody who seems to be able to get the ball out quick and get it exactly where it needs to be. So that'll be an interesting battle, coming up to see who kind of wins that starting job going into next year.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go to the red division, and we'll start with Marmion. And I would think here, the name we've got and somebody that we saw step in this year who was a freshman and did really well was Roy Magana. He stepped in for a couple of games. I don't know, maybe 3, 4, 5 games this year, Dan, if I remember right. And he really did a good job. And, you would think that he's got the inside track, to the quarterback position for Marmion next year.
Yeah, he was really crafty. I think he got hurt, Joe, is the only reason that he didn't continue. I think that was injury, because they really liked what they were getting from Magana, and very crafty in the pocket, excellent with quick game and RPOs. You can see his throws, and his arm will get better with age. And he's got a ton of good football in front of him. He's going to make Marmion really dangerous.
Yeah, he is. Any other names, that you're aware of, Jenny, at Marmion, or
no, but
is that the name that kind of sticks out? Yeah,
that's who I had to. He did receive honorable mention as a freshman. He just has such a strong arm. I think he does great when he's being blitzed. Maybe he still has a little hard time reading the defense, but I think he is really going to be the future of Merriman.
Yeah. All right. That's good. So we had a chance to talk to Coach Guerra, interview him last year before the season started, and they had a good season, I think, in his first season as head coach. And I think he's got some really good players coming back, including Magana here. So I think the future is looking bright for Marmion. Let's go to Marion Catholic in the Red Division, and there's one name here, and I think Jenny, you kind of brought this up, and that was Owen Askren.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and what are they? What's kind of some of the background on Owen, and what are they looking for from him?
They're looking for the quarterback.
They're looking for a quarterback.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I think it's just now starting like his recruiting. He did play on varsity last year. I don't know if he was the starter, but he did play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's not a ton out there, Joe, that I could find anyway. That doesn't mean that there's not a ton out there. But
I have a friend who's like close to the program. His sons went through it, and he used to coach a little. Or he used.
Yeah, Marion is one of those teams that we didn't get a ton of information on. We did interview Coach Lopez last year before the season started. Obviously they didn't have the season that they were hoping for, but I hope that we're able to talk to Coach Lopez again, and maybe we'll get a little bit more information on Owen or some of the other quarterbacks that he might be looking at to contribute next year for Marion Catholic.
Yeah, it's like an open book, we're ready to learn and watch as it happens, Joe.
Yes, we are ready. All right, so another team that things didn't go as they had hoped, but that this is Leo in the Red Division. The quarterback position was something. I'm trying to think of the name who played it. Was that Javon Logan?
He was a running back, wasn't he?
Running back, yeah.
So yeah. Derek Davis may be a returner.
Maybe a returner.
He may have played as a sophomore. I don't know if he was a starter. But Jenny, do you know if he was a starter last year?
Last year.
Oh, he was. Okay,
Yeah.
I thought he was a sophomore. Okay, God, iffy info. Yep. He's Joey's not real big, but he's a really good athlete. Multi-sport athlete, baseball standout as well. I think he'll be in his second year as a starter. So there's hopefully some additional weapons now that Javon Logan's gone, and hit a quarterback, Marshawn. Or a wide receiver, Durr. Yes, another really good player. So, again, I feel like that we learned last year they were better at the lower levels. Jenny, maybe but hopefully they're on the right track. We got Joe. You got their coach's name, right? Was it first name was Theo? I'm trying to think of the coach that I thought you confirmed a new coach at Leo.
I think I did. Theo Hopkins.
Hopkins, yes. Okay. All right. Yeah. So we'll see. New coach and who knows what that means and what the offense looks like. But that'll be interesting to see.
Yeah. Yeah. Another team where or school where things didn't go really well for them last year, and that was De La Salle. They're the last team here in the Red Division. Obviously they've got a lot of work to do at De La Salle, and I think Blackman, Howard Blackman, who we interviewed as well, I think he's up for that. I know the first year there, things didn't go the way he wanted them to, but hopefully, and the name here we've got is Philip Seltzer. Hopefully they've got somebody they can kind of build around there at the quarterback position.
That's about all I got too. I mean, missing a whole year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's he was listed as a wide receiver as well. So hopefully they have more bodies that they can put around him and get some quality practice time this summer going into next year. So they're ready to go. And so while we have this name, it might be totally different. They may have someone else or want to play a young guy and see if Philip Seltzer can't be more dangerous at wide receiver. And that's just a total guess. So we'll have to wait and see with De La Salle. We'll have to get Coach Blackman back on, Joe, this spring.
Yeah, we will. And, I know he said their numbers were down a little bit last year, but I think you just mentioned this, Dan, their numbers at the lower levels were much better. So, hopefully that bodes well for them going forward into this next year. But we'll try and get Coach Blackman on and talk a little bit more about De La Salle football and what their plans are for the upcoming year. All right, so that brings us to our last division, and that is the white division, and we will start with Fenwick. And from a standpoint of quarterback, they've got last year they had Jamin Williams, right, who is coming back, and he got hurt. He was having a good year, and I think he got hurt maybe the 5th, 6th game of the year. And then the previous starter, Frankie Hosty, I think came in and finished the season for them and did a really good job. But they've got Jamin back for this year. And I would think that, they're in a good spot, with Jamin at the quarterback position because he performed really well last year. He has since he's been a freshman. He had great stats last year, even in the 5 or 6 games that he played. So, I would think Jamin is, somebody that you can put in Penn this year on the starting roster for Fenwick at quarterback.
Yep. Couldn't say it any better, Joe. They are set, ready to make a run. They have a really good group back. So, expecting big things from Jamin Williams.
Yeah, like we said, he's one of the 3 that was all conference last year. He's small, but he's
that's good. That's good, and they were a play away from getting further on in the playoffs last year, and I think they probably Coach Battaglia has probably got some big plans for Fenwick coming up, especially if he's got Jamin to rely on at the quarterback position. So. Let's move to another team in the white division. That is St. Lawrence. I'm not sure where they're at from a standpoint of the quarterback position. Now they graduated. Who was it? Kwiatkowski?
Yes.
Yeah. Who was his backup, Jenny? Do you know?
You know what? I am not sure, but I did reach out to the new head coach, Coach Swanson.
Yeah.
And I did ask him if he had a chance to, really look at anything yet. It's all happening so far.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah. Multi-sport athlete. Joe, I think Corey Les played quarterback when.
Oh, right.
I think they kind of went to that Wildcat offense, and he was such a good athlete. But Jenny, their lower levels have been in good shape too. So it's not like they won't have anyone, but I would think Jimmy McDermott has the inside track too as well. And yeah, everything is they've got a lot of stuff to replace at St. Lawrence. So they'll be an interesting follow next fall.
They will be. I mean, they've had such talent and such talented teams over the last several years, and I'm sure the new coach is stepping into a pretty good situation. But like you mentioned, Jenny, he's got a lot of work to do getting to know his players and who he's got and who he's got to rely on for next year. So, it's not an easy job, even though you're taking over a pretty good program already. Yeah.
And one thing about Coach Swanson, obviously he hasn't been a head coach yet, but he's kind of grew up. I don't know if you guys read this, but he's kind of grew up on the football field. His dad coached for like 20-something years at Marian Catholic.
Yeah, I did see that. So, and he's got some good mentors. He's been in a couple different programs, both high school and college. So he's prepared. So they've got the right guy in place. So I'm sure he's doing much more video review than we are, and he's going to have it. He's going to have it figured out come summer, or at least the end of summer.
All right, good. So we've got 2 teams left in the white division, and I'm not sure there's going to be all that much discussion on these 2 teams.
Right.
Yeah, 2 teams and 2 stud quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Yes, we've got Montini and Carmel, and we've got Izzy Abrams or Israel Abrams and Trey Taylor, right? 2 probably, if you were to look at, who are going to be the top quarterbacks in the Chicago Catholic League next year, a lot of people would put these 2 guys 1 and 2, I would think. And for good reason. They're both really talented. They're both only going to be juniors as well. So it is crazy. It'll be interesting to see, obviously Montini and Israel Abrams had they won a state championship. So, that's a lot to build on. Montini has to reload in a lot of other aspects of their program. Trey Taylor and Carmel, they didn't have quite the year I think they were hoping for, but they're both of them are just so supremely talented that you would think the sky's the limit at the high school level and probably the college level as well. And I think both these programs are relying on these quarterbacks to, especially in the instance of Carmel, to take them to the next level, right? And hopefully Montini, from Israel Abrams' standpoint, to keep them at that state championship level.
Yeah, Trey Taylor, Joe, I don't know if you remember, and maybe you can tell me if I'm wrong. I think he made the best throw I saw last year against Providence. And I don't know if it was the game-winning throw in the corner of the end zone. It was just unbelievable. However it worked out, it was ridiculous. He dropped it in from about 35 yards and
rolling to his left.
Yeah, it was. Yes,
I remember that.
It was just a great throw, and so he's, Jenny can say he's loaded with offers already. I mean, he's got several big time offers. As a sophomore, it's only going to build. He's going to be offered. Anyone is going to accept a Trey Taylor if he decides he wants to go to college. Wherever you're coaching.
I just saw that he just narrowed it down to his top 5, but crazy. He got his first offer to Michigan before he ever stepped on the field.
It's amazing.
For high school. And one thing I talk about a lot we talked a little bit about it last week too, with the athletes getting all these offers so young. Coach Lynch said it last year in the state championship press conference. He said, kind of told these kids they got to grow up and they got to grow up fast. But I think they're doing an amazing job. I had interviewed Trey before. He's so humble and he's so grateful. Just really good head on his shoulders.
Do you happen to know what 5 schools he's narrowed that down to?
Let's see.
That's all right if you don't.
Yeah, and while Jenny's looking for that, go ahead.
LSU, Nebraska,
Michigan, LSU,
U of I, and Texas A&M.
Wow, interesting. Yeah,
it's a good list.
Right? Kind of
not a bad list.
Yeah, and all over. Yeah, he's spread out. So, yeah, he's big time. And Joe, I think Israel Abrams. I felt like last year he made a lot of big plays, and the offense definitely moved better. When he became the full-time starter. I think from a statistical standpoint, he's going to explode this year. I think he's going to take that next step. Last year, he probably would be mad at me if we ever go to their practice again. But he was kind of a game manager. He had moments, right. But they leaned on that defense a lot. And were opportunistic offensively, I think would be the best way to say it. But I think he drives it this year. I think he is like I said. I think Montini could be another state championship team. They're the ones I think most likely to repeat out of the Catholic League teams that were in the state or that were state champs last year. But I think they could look a lot different. And I think Israel Abrams is the reason for that, is that his growth will be exponential this year. I think it's going to be high stats, high touchdowns, a lot of rushing yards, everything that you could ask him to do. I think he's going to do it this year.
Yeah, I think not only Coach Bukowski, but their offensive coordinator, and I don't know who that was, unfortunately. I can't say his name. But, I think they brought him along exactly at the right pace for his sophomore year. They let him flash a little bit when they needed him to, but like you said, a bit of a game manager in certain situations, and they relied on their defense. But I think you're right. He's going to take a huge next step going into his junior year. And then who knows what happens in his senior year.
Yeah.
No, don't. You're right. It's exactly right. All right. So that's all our teams. That's all the divisions, and really good discussion on the quarterbacks in the Chicago Catholic League. Again, highly talented group, highly anticipated group, and some returning players as well. It's really going to be exciting to watch next year in the Chicago Catholic League, especially at this position. See who steps up, see who takes their game to the next level. But all of that is something we can look forward to. We appreciate everybody listening. Jenny, we appreciate you coming on again and talking with us about the quarterbacks. And I'm not going to put you on the spot, but I'm going to put you on the spot. We'll want to do another one at some point. And we'll pick some other position. How does that sound?
Sounds good.
All right, awesome. Okay, well, thank you everybody for listening, and we will talk to you soon. Make sure you subscribe, follow, like us wherever you're listening from, and we will look forward to talking to you next week.